What's up, everybody? Welcome to 90-Minute Cocktail Hour. I'm your host, Mike Guccione. I am the owner of Driftwood and Dune Photography. This is episode 8 now. I got my man, Jose Santiago from Delia Studios here. Super pumped to talk to him. But before we do, just want to remind everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you subscribe, rate and review us. All that feedback is super helpful and helps get the podcast out to more people. Again, I've said this the last couple episodes, but, thank you to everyone who's been listening. I really appreciate it. It's just wild to think that, these conversations are getting into, into your headphones, into your workflow. That's all I could ask for, and I'm very, very grateful for it. So thank you so much to everyone who's been supporting this so far. So Jose, super stoked to have you here, my man. Jose's a videographer that I've worked with, pretty closely over the last few years. And, he's super talented, great guy to work with. So Jose, just give us a little intro, say what's up, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Thank you for that great introduction, man. I appreciate it. My name's Jose Santiago. I own Delia Studios. .com, which is a wedding videography company, and I also have Twilight Events NJ.com, which is everything else. So Sweet 16, quinceaneras, real estate, business promo, anything else that doesn't fall directly under wedding videography is going to be under the Twilight Events brand.
So I actually just learned this. So Delia, where did that name come from?
So it's my mom's middle name. So my mom's name is Carmen Delia Santiago. So I thought it was something different. You know what I mean? Until I found out that there's a Brian Delia. So that kind of took the air out of them tires. But I thought it was pretty original. So I was like, all right, let's roll with that. Let's roll with Delia Studios,
Yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you're the only Delia. I'm sure Brian Delia is a fine person. I've never met him. But yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You're actually the second person to have their mom's middle name be the name of your company. I don't know if you know this, but Alex Peterson, she was on the podcast a couple episodes ago, and her company name, Adalia, is actually her mom's middle name as well.
Snap. Okay, yeah, I know Alex. Yeah, I know her. I know her pretty well. She's great.
Yeah, and you guys are, are both Latino. So I don't know. There's something with Latinos in their mom.
She was Italian.
No, she's from Honduras. Her family's from Honduras.
Oh, I never knew that. I thought she was Italian. I thought she told me she was Italian.
Yeah, no.
Maybe her husband's Italian.
No.
He's Honduran too?
No. He's I'm not sure. He's from an Asian country. I forgive me, Alex. I can't remember which one. But no, definitely not Italian. I'm Italian.
Right, shout out to Honduras. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we're representing Honduras, Puerto Rico. You're from Puerto Rico, so
you're
Italian.
Right,
so maybe this is like, yeah, I'm Italian, well, right? I'm like second generation Italian. I'm basically American at this point. I obviously have some of the traditions are still alive, but and I actually took Italian in high school, so I was able to speak it for a while, but then I don't know, after high school I just lost it. But yeah, so you're from, well, I don't know if you're from Puerto Rico, but you're of Puerto Rican descent, and this is actually maybe a good place to start. So were you born there, or were you born here? Where's your origin?
I was born in Perth Amboy, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I lived there probably till I was in my 30s. My mom's from Puerto Rico. My dad was from Puerto Rico. My dad passed, but they're both from Puerto Rico.
Okay. So, all right. So then let's get into this. So where along the line did videography come into play for you? Like when you were in high school, maybe late high school, like, maybe thinking about like what you wanted to do after that, was videography like on the radar? Were you like, what were you into? What were you doing? Like, what were you thinking about?
In high school?
Yeah. Yeah, let's get into it.
Oh man, you want to go into a past life, huh? Um, so listen, man, in high school I was a wild boy, so videography was nowhere on my radar actually. When I was in high school, I was actually into music.
Mm.
I was part of a rap group for a long time, from when I was like 15 years old till about my third. When I hit 30, I was still rapping. Um, and
Wait,
that's
this is total news to me. So
yeah.
wait.
You wanted to go back. Hey, this is
Yeah,
on you.
let's get into it. I love this. So, all right. So, what was the name of the rap group?
So it was called PhD.
Okay.
It was Poor Hungry Dirty, and it was me and my close friend to this day, my brother Keeman Bell. And we started the rap group. At the time it was like it was the 90s. I don't know if you know, I'm 48 years old. I don't know if you remember the 90s, but hip hop was like the golden era was the 90s. That's when
Mm.
Nas, Biggie, Wu-Tang, everybody was coming out. Um, everybody wanted to rap, you know what I mean? So, long story short, we had the rap group. We started it in his bedroom, with the 4-track recorder and all that, playing records and everything. And then we just kind of elevated. We just started recording in different studios, making records. I did a lot of shows. We were doing a lot of shows, opening for different artists and stuff like that. In like the New Jersey, New York, area. And, that's kind of where I spent a lot of my time. That was kind of like my creative outlet.
Mm.
Just, writing songs, making music.
Mm.
And I did that till I met my wife. Um, when I at my 30th birthday party is when I met my wife. And we were still in the clubs. We were going to a lot of clubs. I don't even know like if nightclubs are still a thing, but at that time they were. So we were going to nightclubs in New Jersey, New York, like every weekend. I used to party a lot, bro. But that's why I met my wife when I turned 30 at my 30th birthday party. I didn't meet her there. I met her actually. She was a host on a radio show in college. So they had me on as a guest. And that's how I met my wife. And then I invited her to my birthday party. And that's kind of the first time that we kind of hooked up. So, and then after I met my wife, slowly after that, I started, getting away from the nightlife.
Mm. So was this paying the bills for you, or did you have like something like?
Oh no, not at all, not at all. That was just something that I did. It was like we made money off of it.
Mhm.
But at the time, like it wasn't like now with like YouTube like was
Mm.
big and you could monetize stuff and you had all these different outlets where you could put your music. We were very like selling CDs and you had to like pass your CDs out and stand in front of the record store and do all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't paying the bills. I actually, my 9 to 5, which kind of ties in with how I got into this, was I was working at a construction company, and I was a dispatcher for the drivers. So the guys that would drive the construction materials, they call them building products, to the different job sites. I was the guy that would assign them the routes, be in touch with the job site, make sure they got there and all that. I was a dispatcher.
Mm. So, all right. So this is fascinating to me.
You didn't know all that, Mike, right, Mike?
No, no. I mean, and this is why I do this, because like, we don't get the time on a wedding day to like talk about this stuff, and like, I see you, I see all these other people on the regular, and like, we have this bond of like working together on wedding days, and like, it's like a real bond, because you're kind of like you're in it together, and the days can be like stressful but exciting, and like you're around so much joy. But like I don't know that much about the people that I'm forming these bonds with. So that was like the point of starting this, is like really getting to, like you said, go back and like, like find out where people are coming from. Um, so, um, so did you guys have like, do you guys have any music out there still? Like, is there stuff that you could like look up on like YouTube
Um,
or like SoundCloud or something?
there is. I'm not gonna say it on here because I don't want people to start going and digging. If you find it or you talk to somebody who knows, I already told you the title of the group. If you can find something under that, but yeah, I don't want it too much. They start digging, and then it becomes like I already like some of the videographers that work for me. They know about it. They make jokes about it already. So I'd rather not.
All right,
You know.
we can cut this part out. We can cut.
No, you can leave it in. You can leave it in if you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
If you find it, you find it. I'm not embarrassed by it, but I tried to, as much as I could, kind of like not scrub it, but just I wasn't active in it anymore, so it made no point. It wasn't serving me to have, you know what I mean, the music up anymore because I wasn't trying to push it. So it just, it's kind of like back in the days. I mean, I don't know, like, music nowadays, it moves so fast that people are not worried about what I was doing, 18 years ago, which is what it is. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, there's like a video or two on YouTube of me rapping or whatever back in the days or whatever. And it's cool. You know what I mean? If people find it. But like I said, I was during the day, I was working at a construction company. And this was about the time where I feel like YouTube started to become more popular. Um, and I started to get an interest in how these guys were putting out such good looking stuff on YouTube. You know, because at the time, DSLRs were just kind of getting into the market, DSLRs that were doing video. So up until this point, a lot of videographers were using the older 3-chip cameras, they used to call them. And those are the bigger ones. You would put them on your shoulder. They had like the square lens on the front of it, and it was a video camera. And they were expensive for what they were, but again, it was video. It wasn't like DSLR yet. So I was wondering how these guys were getting such great videos on YouTube. And again, this was like the tail end of my like music run. So we were starting to actually film videos with guys that had the better cameras. And I started to kind of get an interest into the cameras. And then I started, obviously wondering like how these guys getting such good quality videos, other people. So that's where my interest sparked. It really initially started with the cameras. And then I had a bunch of friends that were in the music business. So I ended up purchasing, I believe my first camera, I had several video cameras, but my first DSLR was the Canon 7D. And I started filming videos for like other artists, that I knew, music videos. And that's kind of where I started getting the interest into it. I started doing it kind of part-time. And eventually what happened was I got let go of my construction job. So they were downsizing, and I didn't do anything wrong. They were just downsizing. So they said, hey, we're going to let you go, but we're giving you like a severance package. And it was like $5,000 or something. So with that money, I ended up purchasing my first laptop, which my wife has it. It's upstairs. We use it as just a throw around laptop if we ever need one. It was like a 2009 or even before that, maybe 2007 MacBook Pro or something like that. And I bought, like I said, the Canon 7D Mark I or whatever. And I bought like a nifty 50 for it. You know what I mean? I didn't have hardly anything in the beginning. And then I tried a couple different things. I tried photography, but I really wasn't into it. So I had some friends that were like trying to do modeling and stuff like that. I tried to do some photography. It really didn't stick with me. I really wasn't feeling it. I felt like I could have been good at it, but it really there was like, you know what I mean? There was like, to me, like there wasn't really no money in it. At the construction company, I was actually making decent money. Like at that time, you're talking about, I don't know, you're talking like 18 years ago or around 18 years ago, I was making $30 an hour. So 18 years ago for me, that was a decent amount of money.
And this was like before like kids and all that stuff. So like,
No, so
oh,
so no, I had my daughter when I was 18.
okay,
Yeah, so I already had my daughter, but she was living with her mom. They moved to Florida, so
okay.
it wasn't like I had kids like the way you have kids running around the house and stuff like that. But um, so the photography was like a photo shoot. They were trying to do like $100 or something like that, and I was like, it was cool. And again, it was like part of learning the camera and learning exposure and learning lighting and learning angles and posing and everything like that. So I just kept, I got more into the video end of it. And then I ended up teaching myself. There was a website called lynda.com. She sold that for millions of, I don't even know how many millions of dollars to LinkedIn. She ended up selling that
I
company.
vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I taught myself Final Cut Pro 7 on there. Just self-taught. I went through all the tutorials. I made notes. I took it, very serious. And I taught myself Final Cut Pro. And again, through tutorials on YouTube and everything, I taught myself the basics of the camera. And it was so funny because, at the time, there were other videography companies that were doing music videos and stuff like that. And I would reach out to them and send a nice email. This is before LinkedIn and all this. I would send an email like, hey, my name's Jose. I'm trying to get into the videography business, and a real nice email saying, hey, I would basically like to learn, and basically I would work for free. I sent out a bunch of these emails. Nobody cared, bro. Nobody cared. It was. I guess they were. I don't know if they were scared of the competition. They didn't want to be bothered or whatever. But nobody was trying to help me. So the reason I'm saying that is because I basically had to teach myself everything in the beginning. So but I taught myself everything. And like I said, I was shooting music videos, and then I had a friend of mine. Pardon me, I got like a little scratchy throat, but
You're good.
let me drink some water. I had a friend of mine who he was a rapper, and he was getting married, and he was like, hey, can you shoot my wedding? And I was like, I can try. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never shot one before. I'll do my best. I'll give you something. So I went to his wedding. I went to his wedding.
You'll get a video.
You'll get a video. I attended his wedding with my wife, and I told my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time. I said, I need you to help me out. So, whatever I need, just, if I need you to charge a battery or whatever, so me and my wife are running around this guy's wedding. I'm looking silly with a camera. I might have had a tripod. I don't remember. I don't think I even had a tripod. I was just doing everything handheld and just following him around. And so I shot the guy's wedding, right? I bring it back. I edit it. To me, even to this day, it came out okay for like how little bit of experience I had. It came okay. And they loved it. Him and his wife, they loved it. They were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Boom, boom, boom. Again, we're going back like, 18 years, 17 years ago. So we're going back a long time.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking that video, and this is back, and I'm going to go back on you, bro. There was a website. It's probably still around. Probably nobody uses it except creepy people, but it was called Craigslist.
I know Craigslist.
So what I did was I took that video, I took all the hip hop videos I filmed, I took everything I did up to that point, and I made a website on WordPress. That's what I did. I made a website on WordPress. And on Craigslist, I would look for people that were looking for a videographer, and I would post a link to that WordPress site. And that's how I was promoting my stuff. And somebody hit me up. There was a company called, I believe it was Majestic Entertainment or something like that. The guy's name was Julian that ran. I'll never forget it. I don't know what he's doing now, but he hit me up and he was like, hey, I saw your work. I have some videography work that if you could help me with, he wanted me to film a tennis match or something, right? So I said, okay, sure. But he had the DJ company at the time. and he was offering photo at the time. So he was kind of like trying to form like a studio that had DJ, photo, and video. So he had me do like a tennis match, just I guess to see if I can like how I work or if we got along or whatever before he actually gave me a wedding. And then he was like a week or two after that, he was like, "Hey, I actually have a wedding that I want you to film." And I was like, "Sure." And then I was like, "How much does it pay?" And he was like, "Oh, I could do like 800 if you could shoot it and edit it." And I was like, meanwhile, at the time, I just, like I said, I got laid off from the job. I was collecting unemployment for like a year and a half, believe it or not. It was starting to run out. And so I was kind of like looking for a job. I find this guy, I like doing videography, you know what I mean? And I never thought about weddings before, but this guy just told me he was going to pay me $800 to shoot it and edit it. When up to this point, I was like trying to, squeeze $100 or $200 out of like rappers for their videos. So I was like, sure, no problem. You know what I mean? And that's how it got started.
So, all right. I mean, that's actually really funny because I probably got let go from the job that I was in around the same time that you got let go. And, that was kind of like the start of my trajectory too. And I don't know about you, but like when I lost that job, it was like it wasn't just like losing the job. It was like losing this whole like identity, it was like losing this whole like life plan that I thought I was going to have, and, it was like, it was not only like the death of that job, it was like the death of like the 9 to 5, which in retrospect was a freaking blessing, huge blessing, because I'm in the long run, like I'm not built for that, like I'm like I'm built for, having the freedom to make my own schedule and pick and choose like what, who I want to work with and where I want to work. But like, what did that feel like to you? When like, did you kind of feel similarly like when you, got laid off or did you kind of feel like, all right, cool, now I can like really pursue this videography thing?
No, when I got let go of the job, like I said, I was making good money. I know the guys that were above me were making great money. And it bothered me, you know what I mean? Especially the fact that it was just, I couldn't, I didn't do anything wrong. They were just downsizing. So I went through the process of trying to apply to other jobs, and get a job. And I was striking out basically, trying to find another job. And I was bothered by it. Like you said, it's a point in your life where like, you're like, what am I going to do with my life? You know what I mean? I'm this age. I finally got a job that I was with for a while. They let me go. I don't really have nothing going for me. Like, I enjoy this as a hobby, but you're trying to make something happen, just like I have that natural like spirit of like, all right, well, that hustler spirit, well, all right, we'll try to make it happen, try to make money, try to do this, or keep applying for jobs, do something. I can't just be stagnant.
Yeah.
But I was bothered by it, and I didn't know that it was going to be the greatest blessing ever. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know it at the time, and that's why sometimes, even to this day, when bad things happen to me from that experience, I'm like, okay, what is this trying to tell me?
Yeah.
Maybe this is getting blocked for a reason. I need to go this way. You know what I mean? So it kind of taught me that, and it opened up a whole new world for me, really. Because like I said, I started working for this guy and started shooting weddings, and I was on it's like a whole nother life opened up from that experience, because now I was primarily working from home because I was editing from home. So I was able, like, if I had to run and do errands or something like that or whatever, I had that freedom during the day. I'm a very disciplined person. So I also can, tell myself, hey, we're just going to treat this like a job now. We're going to sit in front of the computer for 8 hours and edit like we would if we were at work. We're not going to goof off and stuff like that. And, and see where this takes us. You know what I mean? Like, keep applying that working spirit to it, like that entrepreneur spirit. Like, what else? This opened up now. Where else can this lead us?
Yeah.
So with that in the back of my mind, working for this guy, I started now really investigating the wedding business and going, all right, well, now I'm watching wedding videos all day long and seeing what other people are doing and finding out that what I thought was good, there's guys out there that are doing 10 times greater work than I'm doing.
Mm.
And then that starts the whole, you want to be better, so what lenses are they using, what cameras are they using, what techniques,
Mm-hmm.
from the shooting to the editing. You start inspecting everything, and then you also start examining what guys are charging.
Mm.
And that's when you start finding out that, okay, what I thought was a decent amount of money really is not. You know what I mean? You start, and of course you're new to the business, so you still don't understand that you need, down the line you need insurance, equipment, advertising fees. You need to actually pay your bills. All this other stuff. You don't see that. You just start seeing, wow, this guy's charging 2,500. You know what I mean, for a wedding video, and I'm charging this guy 800, so he's making money off me. You really don't understand everything.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world. But as you start to learn more and more, and you progress, like anything else, you start to master what you're doing, and then you start looking to the future and try to start building, a better future. And eventually, what happened was I started, I started my company, and I started, selling wedding, getting my own clients basically. So at some point, I think I was working for this guy for like 2 years. At some point, he started asking me, "Are you available on this date and that date?" Because he was making money now. He's like, "I got a great videographer.
Yeah.
We're selling him. He's filling up dates. He's showing, the videos on his website and everything he's filling." So I told myself I could do this. What do I need him for? No offense to him, you know what I mean? But what do I really need him for? I can do this myself. I can make a website. I can figure out that. I can figure out how to put my videos on it. I could figure out everything else. So I did that, and I started getting, my first couple of clients. And what happened was it started kind of interfering with when he would hit me up saying, "Hey, are you available?" And I would say, "No, I'm not available." And he'd be like, "Why?" I'm like, "Well, to be honest with you, because I'm shooting a wedding, you know what I mean? I got a wedding for myself, because
Yeah.
I'm an honest person. I don't like to lie to people because I'm not a good liar. You know what I mean? If I lie, I'm going to get caught in a lie. So I always just prefer to tell the truth, because what happens is if I lie, I'm going to sound really stupid making other lies to try to cover. And eventually you're going to find out the truth anyway. So I'm the
Yeah.
type of person, I'd rather just tell you the truth.
Well, and I can tell you, like as a freelancer, it's so much easier to just be like transparent with, everyone that I work for, and like if I'm, booked for a date, like, just tell them like, hey, like this is what's going on. Like, yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm not a good liar. I and also just my conscience like won't let me do it. Like I just have this like guilt and shame that's just like built into me that like, as soon as I start going down that route, I'm like, ugh, no, can't do it. Like, so yeah, I'm totally 100% with you. But it's also like, and I love the way you said that, like those roadblocks, right? Like those roadblocks are the things that like are maybe protecting you from something, or like steering you in the direction that, you're really supposed to be going in. I mean, I feel like, at least for me, like with my business and new things that I start, I feel like the universe always kind of throws me like like in your case, it was this guy who came into your life and was like, hey, do you want to shoot this wedding for $800? And at the time, like that was like a crazy amount of money for you, and I remember having like similar experiences where, I kind of made this decision like, all right, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go start shooting weddings. And then someone would be like, hey, do you want to shoot my wedding? I'll pay you this much. Or like, hey, I'm going to bring you onto my team. And like, I have this many weddings for you and da 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 da. Like the universe kind of like gives you little, I don't want to say rewards, because I feel like that's not the right word, but it gives you like a little, like, it's like a little taste, like you get a little taste of like what you could experience or what you could have,
Exactly. So it started, I started getting so many jobs that it was interfering with him. And then eventually, we ended he ended his relationship with me. I mean, he was, he didn't, he couldn't accept the fact for some reason that, I also wanted to do my own thing, and that taught me something too. The everything is a lesson if you really look at it. Everything. So like when he did that, just like even before that, when like the guys that I was reaching out to see if I could help them, to see, if I can be part of the team, even if it's just, carrying their gear, and they kind of shut me down. That taught me, you know, I don't want to be like these guys.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Um, when somebody, if I have the time, and a person approaches me correctly, I'm an open book. So many guys in this business, I won't mention them, but they come to me and they say, "How do you do this?" or "How did you do that? I'm trying to get into this. Can you literally, will sit with me and take notes?" And I'm an open book. I can name several guys in this videography business, and I'm not trying to take credit, but I'm just, again, it's just those guys taught me not to be like that. So I became the opposite. I became an open book. And again, as long as you approach me nicely and I have the time, I'm an open book, because education is kind of free. And if I can help you in your life, I would like to help you. You know what I mean? If I can help you
Yeah.
to make money and be happier and, have a better life, I would really like to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm with
That's the
you.
kind of person I am.
We don't need to gatekeep this information. Like there's plenty of work to go around for everybody. And I feel like that really speaks volumes to, not only your work ethic, but like, like we've had some pretty thoughtful conversations about, the relationship between like photography and videography and like how we work off each other. Like first of all, I know anytime that I show up and I see you, like it's going to be a good day because, like what I do and what you do, or whatever, if I'm second shooting for someone, like I know it's just going to be a good day. Like we're going to make beautiful images and video, and we're going to have fun in the process, which I think honestly is like really the goal. Like I think, especially for like couples, like their wedding day, like, yeah, obviously beautiful images, beautiful video is the goal, but it's your wedding day. Like, let's have a good time. Like, let's have some fun. This is about like love and joy and happiness and like celebration. Like, let's do it. Like, let's have a good time. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like the people that I've gravitated to in the industry are people who are like that. And I've had experiences with people who are, I don't want to say like not like that, but like, I don't know, people who, for who it's really just a paycheck, and it's really just a transaction, right? And that's fine. There's like a place for that. Some couples maybe don't want to be, friends with their vendors, and that's totally fine. They just want someone to come in, do the work, produce quality work, and say goodbye. But like, I'd rather be around the people who are invested in like making it a fun experience and like creating some connections, and also like helping each other out. And the people that I've worked with, anytime I've asked them a question, they've always been super open with me. Not only that, but like they will give me feedback on my work too and be like, hey, like you did this during this wedding, and I can see why you might have done that, but maybe next time look at it this way. And you know and I really appreciate that, because when, like you said, when you come at me in a respectful way, like I'm open to feedback. I think we all are, and I think at our core we all want to be better, we all want to do better. So now when I get the opportunity, if people like reach out to me, not even in terms of like learning techniques, in terms of like, if I'm booked for something, I have people that I'll refer out to. If I can, give someone an opportunity to like assist, or, um, you know, whatever it is, like I want to be able to do that for them, because so many people did that for me, and I've learned and grown as a result of that.
Right. And you know, that's a great point that you made, because like if you think about it, right, having that attitude, that negative, that gatekeeping attitude, it really, you know, I don't want to keep going back to this guy, but basically, you know, he had that attitude where he cut me off because he couldn't accept the fact that, you know, I was moving on or whatever. He hurt his own business doing that. You know what I'm saying? He hurt his own business doing that. I don't know where his business is at now, and I don't care. But my point is that, you know, like for instance, there's guys that work for me that do their own thing, and I encourage it. You know, whether they're shooting for other studios, a lot of them do their own thing. I mean, you know, guys that have shot for me, they have gone. You know, like my friend Dave Nazialek, he shot with me for many years. And it came a point where he was like, hey, I opened up this real estate shooting company. So, you know, I got to take less dates. And I was like, do your thing, bro. And if you need anything from me, please let me know. But he built this humongous real estate photo and video company out of Tuckerton, New Jersey. And he also is the owner of one of the owners of Oak Leaf Media, which they actually are shooting actual movies now. I helped do the behind the scenes on one of their recent projects called Heavens to Betsy, and it's a short film, but I mean they're working with like $40,000 cameras. You know, they got big budgets, and he's doing amazing things. I never want to be that guy that's like, no, you don't want to, you're not helping me. No, I don't want to mess with you, man. Have a nice life, bro. That's not the way to be, because you know, what goes around comes around. So like now he's working on these, you know, movie sets and everything. And like I said, he'll ask me, hey, can you come do behind the scenes? Maybe another day it's going to be something else. Maybe one day I'm going to be able to be more involved in that business. I don't know. But it's a beautiful thing, you know, not to limit your team and let them do things. And you're going to learn from that, you know, when you limit yourself, you know, with negativity and say, no, they're not doing what I want, like I'm just not going to mess with them, you're kind of closing your own doors. Because, you know, like for instance, one of my shooters, Carlos, he does a lot of content creation stuff. And I'm always learning from him. You know what I mean? Like I look at his work, he'll send me his work and I'm like, wow, that looks good. So when I do stuff for like Twilight events, I have like kind of the things, I pick up a little bit of what he does. I'll pick up a little bit of what the stuff Dave has showed me over the years. And I love working with new people that are like, you know, very talented, hardworking people, because I always pick up things. It might be something in their workflow that's going to make my workflow quicker, how they edit their videos, the way they apply a certain technique. I've been doing this for like 15 years. Delia Studios, I started it in 2012. I've been doing it for over a decade, and I'm still learning every day. I love this job because I'm always learning one way or the other. And the greatest thing ever is that now everything is video. So you go on Instagram is video, Facebook is video. I mean, everywhere I look, it's video. So I'm learning from the world, you know what I mean, around me, from social media, from everybody. So I guess the moral of that whole story is like, don't limit yourself. Don't be like a negative person. Have an open mind. And like you said, listen to your intuition and the universe and what it's trying to tell you when it's trying to tell you something. You know, if it's blocking off something abruptly for you, it might be for a reason.
Yeah. Well, I want to circle back to that Instagram, like social media thing in a second, but you know, and I think a big part of the, you know, like cutting off people or like not wanting to like learn from other people, like has a lot to do with ego. And you know, I obviously, like, we all want to be successful, we all want to, you know, get recognition from our peers, and we want to be like well known in our industry and like have a good reputation. But there's a difference between that and then like ego, right? And like trying to, you know, feed your ego and you know, like, especially with weddings, right? There's just really, in my opinion, like there's no room for ego. Like there's no room for like, because it's not about you that day. Like it's not, you know, like it's literally not about you. It's literally about the couple, and literally it's about like capturing their day, right? So like the more I can like deflate my ego and realize like it's not about me, Like we're all there, usually like there's two photographers, two videographers, and like we're all trying to get our shots, right? So, and there's a hierarchy obviously, and understanding that is important too. But like, you know, understanding that we're all going to get what we need and we're all like equal here on some level, even though there's like nuance to, who kind of gets the right of way. But like, yeah, I don't know. The more I can deflate my ego and just be like, look, we're all here for the same reason. We're all here to get our shots. I think that just makes it like humbles you a little bit, and it makes you open to, to learning from the people around you. And I've had, people come in like second shoot for me, like when I've had my own weddings, who like maybe are arguably like better photographers than me, and I learn from them. Like I learn, I see angles that I wouldn't have thought to shot. I see, lighting scenarios that I wouldn't have thought to use. So, why wouldn't I want to expose myself to that? Like obviously there's something to being true to your style and what you try to like consistently create for your clients, because I think that's important too. But you got to push yourself too to try new things, and because otherwise it gets stale. Like it really does. Especially like during busy season. You're seeing a lot of the same venues over and over again, and you're seeing a lot of the same lighting situations over and over again. Like, I don't like falling into that creative rut where I feel like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. So of course I want to like keep it interesting for myself, and I want to keep it interesting for the couples too.
Mm-hmm.
So all that said, I'm curious. So that transition from like, seeing the rise of, Reels, TikTok, how has that like influenced your work and like the way that you either edit or, the way that you shoot the day?
That's a good question. So real quick on the topic of ego, and we'll get back to the Reels.
Yeah.
There's a lot of personalities in this business, right? And this is the kind of business where if you're the type of person that you can't deal with different people and different personalities, and you don't know how to maneuver that, this is not the business for you. I think there's some people that need to hear that, because I feel like they might be in the wrong business. Because like you said, there's really no room for ego. You have to, like when you go to Planet Fitness and it says leave your ego at the door, that's how you have to be when you come and you're shooting with shooting with a team of people on a wedding day. You have to leave your ego at the door, because it's not about you. It's not really about your portfolio. It's a couple that's actually getting married, that wants it documented, and they want to have a great day. So first and foremost, it becomes almost a customer service thing where you have to be, smart, in the sense that you have to understand that this is a wedding, right? It's not a production studio. This is not a photo studio. This is a wedding. So we're going to do our best to get the best photos and video, but some people, they don't know how to work with other people. Like they're just not, I don't know what the word is, but they're just not in tune. Maybe they're not self-aware. Maybe they don't care. Maybe all of the above. I don't know what it is. But when I encounter those people in this business, I do everything in my power to avoid them, to never work with them again. And then when I encounter the opposite in this business, hardworking, people that know how to, deal with different personalities, people that work good under pressure, people that find a way to make it work no matter the weather, the situation, the obstacles that get thrown at us on a wedding day. We're talking about the best of the best, and not just their photo skill, because having photo skill is one thing. That's only one little piece of this business. There's a lot of pieces to this business. And when I meet people that are great at all of the different aspects of this business, I do everything in my power to keep working with those people, because they're making my job easier in a sense. They're making it more pleasant. Like when you said I show up and you feel like, oh, it's gonna be a good day. And it's not because I'm a great videographer, but we're gonna have laughs. We're gonna make jokes. That no matter what happens, we're gonna get a solution to that problem, because we're excellent problem solvers. That's a big thing of this business, is problem solving and teamwork.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, I thought of the solution to the problem on my own. No, you're working with 3 other people. You have to understand. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So so basically when I work with people like that, I make it a point to always try to work with these people over and over again, because they're just making me better.
Yeah. Well, and not to cut you off, but
Yeah.
and something you said, like a mutual friend of ours, Kelly C, she always talks about how she's in a customer service business. Like obviously photography is the business, but she always says that like arguably the customer service aspect of it is more important than the photography of it. And like there's definitely like an argument to be made for that. Because like you said, it's about teamwork, it's about problem solving, it's about quick decision making. And again, not just for like the photo and video team, but you're dealing with, all right, is the couple going to be okay with this? Is the venue going to be okay with this? Because like once you get to the venue, then you're on a venue timeline too of like, this is when cocktail hour starts. This is when, the reception starts. This is when the salads need to come out. This is when dinner needs to come out. So like, us getting, really what could be a really beautiful like sunset golden hour session might kind of have to fall by the wayside based on the other factors of the day, and at the end of the day, again, it's about what the couple wants. Like it's about making them happy, right? And if they're photoed out, even if it's going to be the most beautiful sunset, at like Clark's Landing or whatever, like, it is what it is, like they don't, it's not about, getting that content for our portfolios.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up Kelly. I love Kelly. I work with Kelly a lot throughout the year. I'm very fortunate to have her recommend me, because she's one of the, and I said this in my Instagram stories, one of the hardest working photographers in this business. And she really teaches me a lot. I learn a lot from Kelly, on all sides of the business, customer service, workflow, being more efficient, problem solving. She keeps, they say steel sharpens steel. I'm not trying to say, I'm steel, but we work together, and she makes me better. And a lot of photographers, I'm just using her as one example of somebody that is, recognized in this area as probably one of the hardest working, talented photographers that does a lot of volume when it comes to wedding work. But I work with a lot of talent, a lot of talented individuals like Kelly. And again, I'm fortunate that they recommend me. They like working with me. But what I was gonna say was, to what you were saying was, wedding videography and photography, it's like playing speed chess. A lot of people, they think it's like, yo, how hard can your job be? You hold a camera, you go take a couple pictures, and you edit it. They don't understand the complexity. Like you said, we're not only dealing with each other, right? It's like, I try to explain it to my couple sometimes. Like, what do you do? Oh, I work in a cubicle at a corporate. I'm like, imagine if you show up for work and the 10 cubicles around you have all different people in them the next day. Not only do you not know what all those different people, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, you got about 10 minutes to figure it out and start working with them. It's speed chess. There's no room. That's why when I encounter somebody that can't work in that type of stressful situation as a team and get right into it with somebody like you've known for the last, 10 years and get right into it. If you can't do that in this business, I try to avoid you because, as best I can. I mean, I work with new photographers all the time. And, so I'm not trying to sound like, hey, I just want to work with my friends and I don't want to work with nobody else. What I'm saying is I do work with new photographers throughout the year. and other vendors, because it's not just photographer. It could be a DJ that or a band that is just not working with you. It could be that day maybe the bride's having a nervous breakdown or her mother-in-law is giving you a hard time. It could be anything. But what I'm trying to say is I'm open to working with everybody, but again, I try to always work with people that are gonna, make me better in a sense, and we're gonna work together and we're gonna have a great day, and not really work with people that are gonna do the opposite of that and try to make it like a negative or hard day.
Yeah.
Because this is speed chess. You're dealing with a lot of personalities. You have to know how to adapt on the spot. You have to be able to read the room quickly. There's no you can't sit there and have an awkward personality, and people are not going to want to be around you if you can't read the room and you're awkward and you're making everybody else not want to be around you. Like, you're not going to do good in this business. That's the reality. I see a lot of people on Facebook like, oh, my business is not doing good. I only got this many sales. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. There could be a million things you're doing wrong, because there's no silver bullet in this business to get clients. There's not one thing. It's like, oh, I'm doing Instagram's advertising now. That's the silver bullet. There's no silver bullet. There's a million things in this business you have to do in order to get clients. There's a lot, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I have so much respect for, people like you, people like Kelly, people like Alex, who we mentioned before, like, who run their own businesses, who shoot, their own weddings, but then run, just about every other facet of the business too. Because like you said, like, photography is a very small piece of the pie. I mean, it's a very important piece of the pie, but it's a very tiny fraction of the things that actually make you successful in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just, so you have the skill of, like, let's say photography, right? So you're a photographer, you understand all the elements of photography and you know how to take a good picture. Okay, that's one piece of it, There's a lot of other pieces to being a wedding photographer, a successful one that, people are going to recommend. They're going to say, hey, at the end of the day, right? When you think about it, at the end of the day, when the wedding is over, is the bride and groom going to say, man, we had such an amazing time working with Michael and Jose. They made our day so amazing. They were great to work with. And, you probably hear this all the time. I hear it all the time. You guys kept us laughing all day. What an unforgettable experience. I mean, that's what they're going to remember. Are they going to remember, oh, your exposure might have been slightly under, or, this picture was not lit from the, the fill light might have been not, they're not going to remember none of that. That's for you to know. And you have to kind of execute that while you're making them have the time of their lives. Yeah. So that when they get the pictures, they go, oh my God, you were making us laugh. We were having such a great time. I didn't even know you were getting pictures like this. This is, it's mind blowing. I can't believe it. And the opposite is true too. Like, let's say you're not the greatest photographer in the world and your pictures, or you're just starting out and your pictures are okay. If you have the personality where you have them laughing, you're having a good time, you're reading the room, you know when they're tired, you know when to stop, you know when to pull back, you know all that stuff. And then they have the time of their life and they tell everybody, man, my photographer's great. And they get the pictures back. And I'm not saying if the pictures are terrible, that's one thing. But if the pictures are not, award winners, but they're good, the couple's still going to be happy 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, the experience elevates the product for sure. Like, they're going to remember how they felt in that moment. And that, that's just as arguably just as important as the, what the settings were, to a degree, obviously. Like, if you're just bad, you're bad. But
yeah, but like, so it's a bunch of things, and a true master, it understands that it is everything. It is knowing all your settings. It is trying to set the most perfect situation. It is all about problem solving. It is about reading the room. It is about understanding your couple and what they want, not what you want. What does your couple want? Some like, I'll give you an example. Sometimes during the wedding day, and I see photographers do this sometimes I see other videographers do this. You kind of got to go with the flow, right? we get every couple is different, every personality is different. So some couples, they don't like really, maybe like, let's say, public displays of affection is not really
Mm,
their thing. They don't want to sit and kiss 20 times in a row for your picture. So, some couples do, but you have to be able to read it and then go, okay, they might not be into that, so let's switch it up. Hey guys, why don't we do some walking, some
yeah.
talking? Why don't you look at each other, try to make each other laugh? You got to be able to take what they're giving you and then say, okay, we got to switch up on the fly because they don't like that, and then be able to do what they like, because again, it's really customer service. It's really about the couple and their experience.
Yeah.
And what I was gonna say was, some photographers, they do the same thing. They can't read that, right? They don't
Mm,
understand that, and it's really, it'll get really awkward because you'll hear the couple saying like, really, and you're like, wow, and the photographer's not seeing that. They don't want to do that. That maybe
mm,
they feel like it's corny. They're putting the old boy face on while you're doing that, and you're not reading that. And then us as videographers, sometimes we're on the sidelines, like feeling awkward because they're not able to read that they have to change it up on the fly. That's not going to work for this couple. That's not going to work for this day,
yeah.
and other things, right? So you might have thought you had a longer timeline for photos. Now you have a very short time for photos. You can't really start making everybody else late and changing the entire day around and messing up all your other vendors. You know what I mean? Because you want to, no, you have to adapt and say, well, I'm going to have to go to my core best technique right now, so that in 10 minutes, I know every picture I take is going to be one that's going to make it in the album, because I no longer have 60 minutes because
Right.
we're running late.
Right. And in those situations, a lot of times what I'll try to do, especially if there's, photo and video team, is I'll do things that involve a lot of movement. This way, you guys, because you guys thrive off of movement, right? So if we're doing static poses, that's not really going to play well for video. So, and for the kind of stuff that I want to get, movement is really important, right? Because I'm obviously, I want, like, there are the candid photos, or not, excuse me, the pose photos that you have to get. But I'm also interested in those little, like, moments that happen when there's movement, the things that happen, like, in between the prompts. So, and that plays really well for video too. So in those situations, that's what I'm trying to do, right? Like, you guys can get what you need to get without having to stop and, like, redirect the couple, which, like, eats up time. And also, that can start to get really, like, annoying for the couple, right? When they have
Yep.
two sets of people telling them to do the same thing, multiple times. So, the goal, I think what's ideal is when we can both get what we need at the same time. And obviously there might be specific things that, like, you need to get that aren't going to play well per photo. And that's fine. That's usually, at the end of, like, my prompt, at the end of me getting what I need to get, I always, like, throw to the videographer and be like, or, like, before we move or before we change locations or transition to the next part of the day, like, hey, you get what you need?
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah.
Because that is the key phrase that, if any photographer that's getting into this business, or maybe you've been into this business in a while, you've been in this business for a while, and maybe nobody's ever told you what Mike just said. So I want to just stop him right there, and I want to really put emphasis on what he just said. Two things. One, adding movement to your photography. Not only does it help the videographer, helps us with time, helps us move quicker through the day so that we don't have to redo stuff, but it's going to make your photos, in my opinion, look better, because when people pose, they're like this. But when you tell people, hey, talk and laugh with each other, like, hey, how you doing? And it just adds that more natural look to your photos. They're going to look more candid. They're going to look more natural. So that right there is called teamwork. And people in this business that are at the top, that work with each other a lot, that do a lot of weddings, they are pros at intertwining their disciplines together to do that. So, like, even when I'm doing video stuff, I try to do it so that photo can grab some stuff while I'm doing video stuff, so we could keep moving the ball forward. We're not, some photographers get this mindset that, oh, I got to get my stuff. And if I, and there's the second part of it, if I ask them if they need anything, they're going to run off with my couple and I'm not going to get my stuff and it's going to be a terrible day. So I don't care about video. Let me just get what I need to get and not care about them. Because I get those kind of photographers sometimes. That's the second part of what you just said that's so important, is asking the other person, did you get what you need? Do you need anything? And I understand that there's videographers out there that, unfortunately, if you do that with them, they will maybe try to run with it for 10 minutes and then you have to kind of cut them short, or you have to kind of, again, communicate and say, hey, every time I ask you that, you can't take them for 10 minutes. I'm just, trying to, give you a chance to, if you need a little movement or whatever, giving you that little chance. You have to communicate, right? So I feel like if you communicate, then everybody will win. But just that little question, if you've been starting in this business or you've been in it for a long time and you don't ask not only the videographer, but anybody else that little question right there, you should really start asking them that question, because that is so important. And that's really like shows us like, hey, they're working with us. You know what I mean? This person is open to working with us. They're like, we don't have to now muscle our way in there and go, all right, when you're done, hold them there, whatever. Like you're already being proactive and say, hey, do you need anything? Are you good with that? Just checking in with us. I mean, that really like changes everything. You know what I mean? When you guys do that. And it's, and then most of the time, what do we do? Like, again, I'm not speaking for every videographer, because you might get a bad, cheap videographer that doesn't know what he's doing. But if you get people that do this all the time, they're going to say, yeah, let me just get them to walk real quick. Or, you know what, guys, for 2 more seconds, just talk. It's going to be a very short period of time if we didn't get what we needed because of the pose or the flash or whatever. And then we're going to get it and we're going to move on. And look, we're all winning. Nobody lost. We're all winning.
Yeah. And also, I mean, 9 times out of 10, the stuff that you have them do too is stuff that I can work with also. So, again, we're both winning. And then I've also had other situations where, the videographer will tell me up front, like, hey, at some point, I just need to pull the couple for like 5 minutes to do this one specific shot, and that's fine. That's totally cool. And it might be something that is not going to work for me. And, like knowing that, again, it's as long as we're on the same page, we're on the same team, like we can each get what we need. We can each create a beautiful product for the couple, and it doesn't have to be a struggle, and it can actually be fun.
And let me give you an example, right? Of like when people are not team players, so that anybody watching this has an understanding, like, well, what is that? How about if I don't do that after every single thing? Or like, they might be a little confused as like, I'm trying to, let me make it clear, like when somebody's not a team player, like how they sound.
Oh boy, here we go.
So, hey, I've worked with, and I listen, I've met a lot of people in this business. I have a lot of relationships, great relationships with photographers, with venues, with things. So, I'm not, saying this like to be a negative or to be like, I don't want to work with new people or blah, 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 or whatever the case is, right? I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just trying to give you an example of somebody like from our point of view that's not trying to be a team player. Okay? Because we worked with some demons and I've told you about this. So I'll they'll be shooting or what. I'll come, first of all, I've had experiences where I come into the room, photographer won't even say hello to me. They won't even address you, right? So you walk in the room like, hey, good morning, how you doing? You ready? And you're all happy, you're ready to get the day started. Photographer shooting, you walk up to him like, hey, how you doing? I'm Jose, the videographer, and they're like, like something like that for real, like that blunt, like not like, oh hey, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, or hey, my name's Hannah, whatever. I don't want to say anything. My name's Susie or whatever. No, they're just like, they look at you, they're just like they're not even trying to acknowledge you. They're just like, So right off the rip, right there, you already know. All right, maybe this person's not a team player, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. And then like they'll start, working with the couple or whatever. They'll never ask you if you need something. But me, at some point, I have to ask the photographer, like you said, hey, I just need to grab something real quick. I've had photographers tell me, no, I'm sorry, we don't have time for that.
Mm.
You don't have time for that? Well, I don't understand that. Like, and when they tell me that, I chalk it up to either they're a complete novice or like they're new to weddings. Maybe they only do a couple weddings a year. Maybe they don't care about videography. Maybe it could be a million reasons. But I in my mind, I'm like, okay, now I have to start communicating a little harder with them because like for them to tell me, no, we don't have time for that is crazy because I'm probably getting paid the same amount of money as you're getting paid. And we're both here to serve the couple. And they thought I was just as important as you were because they hired me to be here to make a video for them. Like they hired you to make photos for them. So for you to think that you have some authority and then tell me, no, we don't have time for that. Like if you're my boss or like you're just not going to allow it, that's when we bump into these problems on wedding days when videographers get a sour taste for like working with a certain photographer. It's stuff like that. I just want to be clear because I don't want people to think, oh, he's finicky or they're being difficult. No, we're very friendly. We're very open. We try to communicate and everything like that. But you'll run into people that will just tell you straight up like, no, sorry, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's when you're just like, well, what do you mean? That's what leads to problems on wedding days. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, my experience working with you is you're probably one of the least, intrusive videographers that I work with. Like, and you and like the crew of guys that, freelance for you and freelance for some other studios. Like, there's a really good group of guys that, work for you and work for, a couple of your competitors. And I know anytime I see those guys, like, again, we're going to have a good day. So, I think like that's definitely a credit to, A, your personality, but B, like your skill set too, is that, we can all create a quality product pretty efficiently. Something you said before about like, photographers that, I think like efficiency is like one of the most important things as a photographer and videographer and really anything in this industry is like getting what you need, not only like getting a good photo, but getting it in like a very quick, easy manner. And that's just my, again, my perspective. Like other photographers, other videographers, they do it differently. And like, and I think like, I guess not to play devil's advocate to what you were saying, but like, I think there are couples who sign up for this experience of like their wedding day is a photo shoot. Their wedding day
100%.
and they're, on board with that from, the booking of the photographer, the videographer, whoever they get. And like, they get that, they understand that. The majority of couples that, that I work with, that you work with, did not sign up for that. Don't want that experience, like obviously they want beautiful photos, they want a beautiful video. But they don't, and I honestly, and this is me personally, in my opinion, of how I think it should be, like the photos and the video shouldn't be, the driving force of the day. Like obviously there are things that need to happen, right? Like in turn, to be able to get beautiful photos and videos, like, first look in most situations is going to be key unless there's, a church ceremony. And then carving out that time for photos is going to be really important. But, once that time is over, like, then we're just kind of in the passenger seat for the rest of the day, like letting the venue kind of take over, and do what they do. And if we want to like interject for, whether it be golden hour photos or, a night shot or something like that, then, that's, those are two examples where, we can kind of like step back in. But, I really, the couples that I think I am drawn to and that are drawn to me are the people and that are drawn to like a lot of the people that we work with and know are kind of like drawn to that experience of, yeah, they want beautiful photos, but like, we're not signing up for like a 4-hour portrait session. You know what I mean?
Let me just say this real quick, and you're 100% right. There are some couples that, and I would say there's a significant amount actually of couples that do, I would say, prioritize the photographer over the videographer. I mean, that's just, that's not like news to me. Now, I've been in the business for a long time. I know that couples usually will hire the photographer before they hire the videographer. Excuse me. And there are couples that really prioritize photography and they want the photo session to be the main part of their day. Especially, I feel like nowadays with social media and everything like that, couples want, to really just wow everybody by having amazing photos. And I've worked with photographers that charge a couple $20,000 to come out and shoot their photos. You know what I mean? So I understand, but here's the key. Here's the key. The couple might be prioritizing photo over video. That's fine. The couple might have paid an exorbitant amount of money for this photographer, and that photographer knows, hey, I'm getting paid $20,000. I'm just throwing a number out there, $20,000, like luxury prices to come shoot this wedding. So they have a lot of pressure on their shoulders to deliver those photos. Okay. And I understand that. That's part of this business. Understanding that you do have that responsibility when I'm working with so-and-so, right? I know the level that they're at. Here's the key. Some of those photographers, when I work with them, easiest day on the planet. You would never know that the couple prioritized them. You would never know that they were making, 5 times what I'm making to be there. You would never know because they know what they're doing. They're pros on a very high level. So they'll come and they'll still say the magic words. Hey, did you get what you need? Do you need anything? So just because they're making luxury profit and the couple is looking at them like, you're our God today, doesn't mean that they have to become people that are hard to work with. A lot of them are very easygoing, great people to work with. We still get what we need. We still put together a beautiful video. At the end of the day, the couple might say, we love our photos, but we really love our video, which is even crazier that they paid a fraction of the cost for it. You might get that.
Yeah. So,
just because, again, it's all about teamwork. Even if you're getting more money than me, less money than me, it doesn't matter. We really can all work together to get what we need, I guess, is like the bottom line of that,
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to get into that, that social media piece about where, how does your edit, where did you start noticing that you had to kind of adapt to this new trend of TikTok, Instagram, whether it be for yourself, marketing for yourself, or or if it's something that your clients are looking for?
So the one thing is, right, the first thing, and again, it goes back to the couple, is so let's just take Instagram as an example. Vertical video is now is everywhere, right? So that's like a trend, obviously it's been around for a while. It went from horizontal to vertical. The trends, they always change, and the way you stay on top of them is by being on social media and looking at what people are posting, what's getting traction, what your competitors are doing. You always have to be paying attention to the market, what they want, because things change, right? So if you're in this business, you always have to have your eye open for change. You always have to be knowing what the new trends are coming in. You have to be on the blogs, you have to be on the Facebook groups, you have to see, because if you don't keep up with the times, you're not going to be able to sell. And selling is everything. If you don't sell, you don't eat. So basically, if you're not smart enough to figure out what couples are looking for in the price range that they're looking for it in, you're not going to sell.
Right.
So you always have to be on top of social media. But it always, to me, it comes back to the couple. And the reason I say that is this. For Instagram, for example, I still give my couples the option of saying, hey, do you want to, if you're getting a teaser video, do you want a vertical video or do you want a horizontal video? I still give them the option. And the reason why is, and most of them still pick horizontal, is because they say, well, I don't know if in 5 years from now video is going to be horizontal, but I know when I play it on my TV screen or any screen, I can always watch it in a horizontal. So they might pick that. I might ask them, I don't really ask too much anymore, but I would ask like, hey, like if like let's say some like black and white is like kind of making a comeback now, where like they want a couple of black and white clips in their video. I might ask them, or they might tell me, hey, can you throw a couple black and white clips? I really like the way this, dragging shutter look. They might not know the name of it, but they might say, we really like this video where this looked like choppy like this. It might be like a dragging shutter clip.
Okay.
So you're always listening to your customers. I mean, that's one thing that I feel like some people in this business also, they kind of drop the ball on, is they don't communicate enough with their actual couples and ask them enough, like, what are you looking for? What did you like? Oh, you like that? Why did you like it?
I think that's probably really important with video is I feel like, and again, I don't know, maybe this is not accurate, but with photo, it's pretty easy to tell like what the different styles are, right? Because it's like right in front of you, right? But with video, it's a little bit. Oh,
I love it.
What's up, dude? How's it going? Yeah, you snuck in, huh? You want to say hi? This is Jose.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Jose. What's your name?
What's
You
your
shy?
name, bud?
Camera shy?
This is Augie. Hey, bud, I'm almost done, okay? Can you give me like 10 more minutes? And then I'll come hang out with you, okay? Oh, did you get a splinter? What is that? All right. You want to hang out for the rest of the podcast? All right, here.
You can hang out with us.
Okay. All right, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so photo, like, the style is I feel like it's very easy to discern, right? Because you could look at an Instagram feed and kind of figure out, all right, this person, their edit's a little bit warmer, it's, a little bit cooler, it's a little bit brighter, not as, as exposed. With video, I feel like it requires a little bit more, like, of a time investment to really understand, what the editing style is, right? Because it could be, like, quick cuts, it could be longer, slow motion, not slow motion. Some people are have very like dynamic zoom in, zoom out type of edits, right? So that's probably like a little bit more important to talk style when it comes to video, or maybe not to talk about it, but like to explain it as a videographer.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, so two things. So the first thing is, like you mentioned, like with social media and just looking at everybody else's work, you're always going to see new techniques that people are using, things that are coming into style, things that are no longer in style. So one, you always kind of got to be aware of that.
Yeah.
And figure out if you want to incorporate it into your film.
Yeah.
The second thing is, with video, the couple is more going to have to look at your body of work and
Right.
see if they like it and it fits in with them, because they know more or less what you're doing is gonna kind of be what you're going to be doing for their video.
Right.
So they kind of got to look at your portfolio and say, I like it. I like this video. And then you have to be smart on the other end to go ask questions and then figure out what they liked about it and kind of try to do the same, something similar for theirs. But this is the key. The key to both, I feel like, photo and video, no matter whether you're doing like light and airy or you're doing dark and moody or whatever style you're doing, granted, if you want to keep up with the times on whatever style you're doing, whatever the most current stuff is, that's all great and everything. But at the end of the day, a classic is a classic, right? So, at the end of the day for video, really what it comes down to is storytelling. And that's going to be at the foundation for everything else that you do. So if you don't really have good storytelling skills when it comes to videography, you could put all the bells and whistles you want on your footage. You could put black and white, shutter drag, have light leaks going like this, going fast into slow. If there's no story, it's just a whole lot of nothing that might look good, but there's no story behind it, right? So at the end of the day, for video, really, what I feel like people need to focus on the most is the story, and the story, you get it from your couple,
Right.
right? So their story of how they met, everything that gets said and done on their wedding day, you're putting that together, and you're making it into a story, a movie for them, right? Because, like, let's say you have a movie that you like that came out in 1985, right? Like, for me, my favorite movie is The Goonies, right? And that movie came out in the 80s, right?
By the way,
Directed
I love that. We have just started watching The Goonies with my kids, and they think it's like the best. They think it's, yeah.
that is my point entirely. A good story, it doesn't matter if the CGI effects were off a little bit, or you know what I mean? Like, a good story and a good movie, it's if it's a classic, it's gonna age well, and then you're gonna be able to show it to the next generation, and they're gonna be able to appreciate it, and they're not gonna look back and go, man, that was corny when you did all the black and white and the zoom and the light flash. I mean,
Right.
that lets me know what time period it was in, but is the story there?
Yeah.
And the same thing I feel like with photography. Sometimes we go to these couples' houses, and they'll have their parents' album, on the mantle or something like that. And you'll go through some of them, and if you go through really good ones where the photographer was amazing 20 years ago, you look through it and you're like, wow, did you see this? You know what I mean? Because a classic, excellent photo that tells a story, in a sense, is timeless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sounds corny, but it's timeless.
That's a really good point. One of the things that's been coming up consistently on all the episodes is like trends, like what people are doing in terms of different trends in photography right now. But sorry, hold on one second.
Nah, it's all good, dude.
I'm gonna close
You got a hold of the
Give me
whistle.
4 minutes left.
Blow the whistle.
He's got his little plastic recorder. He's blowing in the background there. But no, that's a really good point about how, like, the style becomes secondary if there's a good story in the image, right? Like, the edit isn't, I don't want to say it's not important, because obviously it has to be well exposed and the colors have to be, realistic. But at the end of the day, there are certain editing choices that we make that are probably not going to matter in 10, 15, 20 years if the image or the video tells a really beautiful story. So, I don't know. And that, I feel like I hadn't thought of it that way until you just said that. And I don't know. I feel like there's something really beautiful in that like the priority anytime we're shooting has to be like on the story that the image tells.
And let me tell you something. You as a photographer, or anybody as a photographer, let me give you an example. Let's say you're doing a first look with the bride and her dad, right? Just an example. And you set it up, right? So you want to set it up. You take into account the lighting. You do everything in your power to make sure that the environment is correct and that you're ready, so that when they have that moment, you're able to document it, which is what you're really doing as a photographer. You're documenting a moment, right? So your job really is to pull that trigger when that emotion is sparked. That's what they're paying you for. You freezing that moment in time for them forever, right? So if you do that and you capture that right at the right moment, and then you did all your right things so that the lighting is right and everything else, it's not really going to matter. It is, to a certain point, how you're going to color it in post, and if you're going to make it light, or you're going to do an effect to it or something. Yeah, that's going to maybe attract people that are looking at the current trends and say, but what are they really looking at? Man, look at that image. He caught that at the perfect time. That gave me chills. Even when the couple look at her, some and say, they look back and they go, oh my God, that's what they're paying you for, really, is to capture things
Yeah.
at the right time. And as a photographer, that's really your job. And you're doing that for 10 hours in a row, which people don't understand, why at the end of the day, like, yo, I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go home and just lay down and die. And they say, well, what? You were just holding a little camera. How can you be so tired? No, you don't understand. I had to just be alert and on point.
Right.
10 hours in a row, capturing special moment after special moment, perfectly, thinking of every single situation and every lighting situation and my settings on my camera and everything, and still being able to capture all those moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to drain you. And that's the real work of a photographer.
100%. I read a quote, and I'm going to butcher it, but the quote, essentially, the gist of it was like what you just said, right? Like, what we're really being paid for is being present, right? Like, we're being paid to be like in the moment, and honestly, I feel like that's one of the things that I love about the job is like, for that 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it is, like, I'm not thinking about anything else, like I like the things that I'm, worried about, and like my personal life, my, family life, whatever, like when I'm there, like I'm there, and you have to be, right? Because otherwise, like, it's, you're gonna miss those split seconds. And even that's like a muscle that gets trained, right? Because like when I first started out, like, I didn't fully understand the nuances of like when to pull the shutter, like when to press the trigger or whatever. Like I was, for a while, I was just kind of like taking photos indiscriminately, like just kind of hoping that like I was catching something in there. But now, like, especially during ceremonies, right? I'm always like just kind of waiting for that moment where the couple is going to share a look, like especially in like a church ceremony, right? Catholic churches where they're like sitting together, and but there's like they probably haven't seen each other all morning, right? The couple hasn't seen each other all morning, and then they finally get to see each other. They're sitting next to each other in the church, but they have to like, there's like a church ceremony going on, so they have to like be quiet. But within those first like 5-10 minutes, 99% of the time, they share a look or they share a moment with each other, right? And I'm like always keeping an eye out for that, where like maybe the groom will say something funny, or like, they'll just kind of like look at each other or like smile or like giggle at each other. And like that's the moment that I'm trying to capture, right? Same thing with like, a ceremony, let's say like on site at one of the venues, like when they're like standing there facing each other, and then whoever is officiating, tells a funny joke, or like someone yells something out, right? If you're not ready, like if you don't have your camera like in your hand, like, and the settings like ready to go, like you're gonna miss that laugh, you're gonna miss that moment. So yeah, like you said, like that's really what you're there to do. Like that's really why we're like getting paid. We're getting paid for our attention. That's what it was. We're getting paid for our attention. So yeah, 100%, dude.
Yeah, it's brutal. People see us at a wedding day and they have no idea. When I enter a wedding day, right, as soon as I knock on the door of bride prep and I enter, what people don't understand is I am now in a different world. I am no longer in the world you're in. I am in the videography world on your wedding day. I am in a different world. I'm seeing everything different than when I'm at home or when I'm doing, stuff with my wife. Once I enter that door to the time I walk out of that venue, I was in a different world.
Yeah.
I might not be able to tell you what was said during speeches. I might not be able to, recall certain things because I am tunnel vision, 100% locked in, completely attentive, and my receptors are up. I am like a TV antenna, you know what I mean? And I'm seeing things through the eyes of a videographer. And I could turn that on and turn that off. When I leave, I can turn that off. I can no longer see the world like that. But when I start for the day, I can turn it on and I'm in that world. and my communication is different, the way I see things is different, the way I hear things is different, I'm locked in.
Yeah.
And that's what real professionals do, and that's what you're getting paid to do, basically, is to
Yeah.
is to do that, and not only be that, but produce a beautiful film when you're done with it. So when you're done with that, that's just part of the process, one little part of the process. Now you're going to take that, whatever you captured during that time, and you're going to have to mold that into a beautiful piece of work for the couple. So there's a lot of parts to it, man. You know how the business is. It's very demanding. It's constantly changing, and that's the reason I love it and why I've been doing it for 15 years now.
Yeah.
Is because it's a challenge, and I appreciate a good challenge. And if I can't rise to the occasion for some reason, I will zoom in on that. You know what I mean, and figure out what went wrong, and it will never happen again, because that's this kind of business. Is like, you can't make mistakes in this business, really. I mean, it sounds stupid, but like, you really can't make mistakes in this business. Like, you can't miss the kiss. You can't, forget a camera. You can't run out of a battery at a certain time. You literally have to be on point all the time in this business.
Yeah. It's high stakes, and it's an adrenaline rush for sure, and I think that's on like a weird kind of psychological level. I think that's one of the things I love about it, is like, it's high stakes, high reward. The pace of the day is usually go, 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 go. But also, like, for the most part, you're around really happy people, and and every day is different, and every couple is different, every family dynamic is different. There are certain things about a wedding day that are somewhat consistent from wedding to wedding, and I think for me, like, for my brain, I think that's what I love about it. There's like enough that's consistent, and there's it's like 50% consistent, and then I don't know exactly what the percentages would be, but like, there's a portion that's consistent, and there's a portion that's like totally different every single time, and and that, for me, like, that's what I need, because otherwise, like, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think I've said this on a couple of the episodes, like, routine, if I get into like too much of a routine, I just get super bored. You said you were super disciplined. Like, I am not super disciplined. Like, like, and part of it is like, life is crazy for me right now with like little kids, and I can really only find like an hour or two a day, not a day, but like an hour or two at a time to like get things done, So for me, like, when I'm out at a wedding day, like, yeah, obviously I'm locked in and I'm focused and I'm present, but like, being at a wedding is like easier than being at home with my three
I've heard that before.
And I, don't get me wrong, I love them. I love my family. I love getting to spend time with them. And the other piece of this, this job, is that I do get to spend a lot of time at home during the week, hanging out with them, doing things with them. And God bless my wife, she is, willing and able to take care of my kids, our kids, I should say my kids, our kids. Our kids.
Be careful.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to edit that out. When I'm gone, when we're gone for 8 to 10 hours plus travel, that's,
Oh yeah,
it's a long day. It's a long day.
And I know we're getting to the end of this, but I want to say a couple of things though. That, one of the things was, you said some of the things, at a wedding day they stay the same, and then some, change or whatever. But here's the deal, right? And this is why you're really getting paid. Why, like, certain videographers make more than others, or whatever the case is. Why, you might be more of a pro than somebody else. Every timeline, right, that you show up to a wedding is kind of standard, right? It's for the more or less, there's going to be a ceremony. At some point, there's going to be a reception. There's going to be a cocktail hour. There's going to be a photo session. There might be preps. So at the beginning of every day, it's relatively, written down what's supposed to happen that day.
Right.
You know what I mean? And when guys go, "Oh, it looks like an easy day," I hate that word. When they say that, I tell everybody, I say, "Don't use that word around me, please," because you're gonna jinx it, right? Because as perfect as that timeline can look on paper, right? When you start the day, that can change quickly depending on what's going on right up front with hair and makeup. So what I was getting at was the reason why people hire pros is because they have experience and they not only know things might not go according to plan,
Right.
they know things are probably not going to go according to plan.
Right.
And when things change, people that like the pros, the experienced people, they know how to roll with it. They've been there 10 times before. They know what they got to change on the fly. They know how to problem solve. Even if it's a unique situation, they figure it out quickly and they keep making it happen. And it looks like they never skipped a beat.
Right.
When
That's
you
the goal.
hire a pro, that's what you're paying for. You know what I mean? You hire somebody who shot 5 weddings, who has a cute reel on Instagram, but has no experience. I have news for you. They have not seen, you know what I mean, all the issues that I've seen over 500 plus weddings that can happen.
Yeah.
And might not know how to adapt. And if they don't, trust and believe, you're going to be missing some stuff from your wedding video.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was, one of the things that happened when I made the decision to go full time, freelance and into my own business was, seeing all the different ways that things can go off the rails and also seeing all the different ways that you can fix it. And, that experience is invaluable. And, not only from just like a problem solving standpoint, but also from a, like how to keep your cool standpoint. Because there have been things that have happened where like, oh, I've never seen that one before, and you're like, okay, how are we gonna, regroup from this? Maybe down the line, I'll start once I'm done shooting weddings, I'll start another podcast where we just go through all the crazy stories that we've all been through.
Yeah.
But like, but yeah, that's like you said, like that's, the costs in your pricing that like, I don't want to say are hidden, but like those are like, that's what you're paying for. Absolutely.
That's what you're paying for, right?
Yeah.
If you hire a plumber, right? And I've had this happen recently, right? I had a plumber come to my house, and I just needed the pipe under my sink. Somebody could probably figure it out and do it. The piece is like $8, right?
Yeah.
If you buy it in the hardware store. I had the plumber come here and he told me, and then he sat me down and he took out his little iPad and he said, "Okay, so it's gonna be $400. And you got to sign this part saying that whether it takes, 5 minutes or 90 minutes, that the price is the price, right?"
Yeah.
So I said, okay. So, and they made me sign that. It took him about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe to change the pipe out and cut it and make sure everything was straight.
Yeah.
And he charged me $400 for that. Now, what I was trying to get at was, I didn't pay him just to put the little $8 piece on and for 10 minutes of his time. What I paid for was his experience in being able to do the job, do it correctly, and save me hours and hours of headache and frustration trying to do it myself, bumping into problems that I don't know how to fix, possibly flooding my house and doing everything else. That's why I paid him for those 10 minutes, that $400 for the experience.
Right. Yeah.
And I knew that.
100%, dude. Jose, can you hear what's going on in the background?
Yeah, no. I get it. No, let's go.
Dude, thank you so much for doing this with me today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I learned a lot, and I had no.
You better go check on them kids, man. They're probably beating each other up, bro.
All right, brother. Well, hopefully I'll see you out there soon, and I'll definitely catch up with you soon.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, man.
All right. Talk to
Take
you soon.
care. Later.